very pleased to welcome Dr. Jacqui Lewis, Shaka Senghor, Derrick Barnes, and Michael Phillips.
Hey, hey,
Hello.
hey, my brothers. Hi.
Hey, Queen.
Hi. I am thrilled to be able to talk with you about Black fathering in Black History Month. Hello, y'all who are here. We're so glad you're with us. Please use the chat to talk to us and give us reactions to what you're hearing. I want you to know that I am not a Black father. I am a Black daughter and a Black sister and a Black auntie and a Black grandmother. I have a Black father who has taught me so much about fierce love. So I'm just honored to be in this space with these incredible gentlemen and the work that they've put in the world that I think is so important. And friends, the books that you've written are beautiful, evocative, tender. Your writing is tender and thoughtful. And I just want to thank you for words on a page that have been very impressive to me. I would love if I could start with a question for each of you to answer. What was your father like that you bring with you to fathering? You know, what was your father like that shapes your fathering, positively, negatively, but what was your father like that shapes your fathering? Can I ask you to go first, Derrick?
Yeah, I just want to say good evening to everybody. As far as fathers go, I was raised by a country girl from Clarksdale, Mississippi. My mother barely had a high school education, but she had a CNA's license, and she worked sometimes 2, 3 jobs. My father would pick me up, maybe once or twice a month. He didn't live too far from us. He had another family. But he struggled. He was a Rolling Stone. He had addiction issues, and I didn't really get close to him until I got married. I asked him to, participate in my wedding. And I remember taking him out to dinner a couple of days before, and we had a very frank and honest conversation. He was, to be quite honest with you, he's one of the nicest people that I've ever met. He didn't have it in him to know how to be a father, and to be quite honest with you, I am very fortunate that he was not in my life, really. I don't think I would have turned out to be the person that I ended up being, but I had surrogate fathers. I grew up in a very beautiful and loving neighborhood in Kansas City, Missouri, and my mother had 3 very tight-knit brothers. My older brother, Anthony, is 7 years my senior. So I was always surrounded by positive, strong Black men, and I think I pulled a little bit from all of them in order to help me raise my 4 sons.
Derrick, that's such a beautiful answer. And I want to say back to you, you're saying your fathering happened from a strong mother, her brothers, and a whole kind of village of people fathering you. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
That's right.
What a beautiful answer. Thank you so much. What about you, Michael? How would you answer the question about kind of fathering in your fathering?
Yeah, one of the greatest things my father, and I only had him for a short time. My father died when I was 12, but for those 12 years, he made me realize how important it was to dream, to imagine a life beyond where I was. And the way he, to use your title, fiercely, ferociously loved his family and would do anything for his family. He was a truck driver, owner operator of a truck, his own rig, and a full-time pastor.
Wow.
And I watched him do both of those things nonstop. His work ethic, the way he treated people, the way he loved his family are some of the characteristics that I take with me or as a father, or at least I pray I took with me as a father. He was just, he was really bent on doing whatever he can within his reach to make sure he exposed us to as much as he possibly could in a positive way. As a matter of fact, before he died, he took us on a road trip in the back of his brown Cadillac, brown Cadillac, leather sunroof, no diamond in the back, right? but he took us in that car, man, and we went to 27 different states. So half the country, from the St. Louis Arch to the Redwood Forest in California to Mount Rushmore to the Grand Canyon. We saw just everything. And then he died over the summer. And that's how bent he was on making sure he could do everything possible to expose us to more, to show us what was possible. And preferably, I've been able to take some of those traits into my parenting. So for the years that I had him, it was amazing.
Thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about you, Shaka? What would you tell us about that?
Hey, first of all, it's just so good to see you all and be here with you all this evening, and hearing these beautifully complex stories really makes me more reflective of my dad, who's actually here with me in New York right now. He's a few rooms over from my hotel room, and my dad is, to me, he's the embodiment of the complexities of fatherhood. When he met my mother had 3 children, 1, 2, and 3 years old. He was 21 years old, fresh out of the Air Force. And he met my mother, they grew in love, and he took on the responsibility of raising these children as a dad. And they in turn ended up having 3 more children, myself and my 2 younger sisters. And then he eventually remarried my stepmom, who's also here in New York. My bonus mom is what I call her now. And she had 3 children who he, collaborated with, when it came to parenting, as they were a little bit older, but, they love him as dad or pops nonetheless. And I think the greatest lessons I've learned from my dad is to recognize that once you're a father to all children who come in proximity to you. My dad mentors young people all over the neighborhood in Detroit. For any of our Detroit family on the call, they may have seen my dad. He stops and he kicks it with the brothers on the corner. He talks to them about his experience traveling, his experience, growing up during very tumultuous times. He grew up, in the 60s and 70s and things of that nature. So he's always one to talk and to lean in with people. And he's brutally honest. He's honest about his frailties as a man. He's honest about his missteps as a father. He's also honest about the tremendous things he's got right. And he takes a great sense of pride in being a dad and being a supporter. And I think the traits that are most reflective in my life as a dad is thoughtfulness. My dad is one of the most thoughtful men that I know, when it comes to family. He's the one that remembers everybody's birthday. He still sends cards and he writes his little notes in them. He checks in on people. He's consistently, on us about getting together as family. He does barbecues every summer and brings not just our biological family together, but the community, because everybody stops down there and, stops by the house. And I think the greatest testament to that is that, I no longer live in Detroit where my dad lives, but my friends stop by and they take my dad food. They stop by and they make sure that somebody shoveled the snow or the grass is cut or whatever it is. Sometimes they just stop by to have a drink with him and absorb his wisdom. So those characteristics, I hope that, when the last page is written on my personal legacy, that they reflect those principles and values that my dad exhibit. And most importantly, that one of recognizing the areas of weakness that we can often, have to navigate as fathers, have to reconcile at some point in our lives. And, so I think my dad has done a great job at modeling that behavior in a way that honors, fatherhood, it honors manhood, and truly what it means to be human.
Yes. Thank you so much, Shaka. I was just thrilled that Random House asked me to be with you all tonight, you amazing authors and fathers and thought leaders, to talk about Black fathering in Black History Month. And what I hear you saying that's just so important to me as a person who loves a dad who's imperfect is that it isn't about like what kind of stellar dad. It's like dadding, fathering, showing up, being present. Really, Derrick, your story is that fathering is across a system, right? Mother's father, uncle's father, friend's father. Your fathering, Michael, didn't stop when your dad died. A system fathered you, right? Your Shaka, your dad, who's a few doors down, is still fathering you. I hear you saying, and I wonder, each of you as authors is kind of fathering us. Is what I was thinking as I was reading your books and listening to your words echo across pages, make words echo across time. You are fathers to particular children, but also to generations of people who will read what you've written. What's your most important message that you want folks who haven't read your book, like they should go get them, but what do you want them to take away about fathering from your point of view in this time, as Russia threatens the world, as we walk up on 10 years since Trayvon Martin is killed, as we kind of hold honor to the verdicts in the Ahmaud Arbery case, but how can you imagine the grief of that mother, that father? What do you want us to think about in terms of fathering the nation, the country, Black folks right now? What's your core message about that? Jacqui, let me start with you and move back around again. What are you thinking about that?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that question. I think it's really one of those questions that encapsulate the times that we're living in. It's great to be on a call with two stellar wordsmiths and brothers who are speaking, the language of my soul, which is the written word. And so I'm truly just honored to be here. When I think about my work as a writer, I think about the abundance of this gift that was bequeathed to us by those who came from before us, the Toni Morris, the James Baldwins, the Langston Hughes, the Donald Goins, the Iceberg Slims, people who really captured the authenticity of our narrative. And, when I think about my work now, I think about my work as an expansion of a narrative and a more inclusive narrative that has been denied us for so many years. Our story starts with our trauma. Even in this beautiful conversation, we can't talk about the realities of being a Black father in America without talking about the traumatic events that characterize and has shaped our realities for so long. But that's a limited narrative that doesn't do honor to those men, those beautiful men who came before us, and those men that are in our presence. And what I hope to do, and hope my legacy as a writer does, is to really expand the narrative to include the beautiful and magical tapestry that shapes Black fatherhood, Black manhood, to see the hero in the normal, to recognize the magic in the mundane, and to really capture all of the beauty in the ugly moments that we see all the time. I have incredible, beautiful men in my life. I have incredible, beautiful dads in my life. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, I'm here in New York. We were celebrating my book being on a billboard near Madison Square Garden. And there's a duality that I'm a big sports fan. I'll never forget when Jordan, put up 55 in the Garden and so many other stellar moments. But the most important and the most impressive is that I was able to share that moment with my father and two of my friends, two of my best friends who are incredible dads, Calvin and Fane. And so knowing that that's my everyday, reality is I get a chance to talk to dope, beautiful Black men, and to know that as a writer, I can invite other people into the world of what we have known to be our magic for a long time. And so the world is just now catching up to one of, I think, America's best kept secrets is that dads are really dope, and we're really worthy of more than a big piece of chicken.
Oh, yes. Okay, Shaka. Derrick, what do you want folks to know about this?
I wrote I Am Every Good Thing after seeing the clothing company H&M. They dropped an ad in 2018 where they had a little African boy in a green hoodie, and the hoodie read "The coolest monkey in the jungle." And that's 2018. When we still wonder how these decisions get passed in these corporate boardrooms. And so as a children's book author and as a father of 4 boys, obviously I don't see my children as any type of, simian. And I talk about this no matter what school I go to. We talk about the history of all the different negative tropes in regards to Black people, in regards to Black men. And so I thought of all the positive things I could possibly think of to, define our boys and how much we love them and how much we care about them. When I was a younger writer, I was just trying to get put on, just like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? Like, coming from where I come from, you just want to make it. You want to move your mama off the block, that whole thing. But the older I got, the more entrenched I got in this business, the more I understood, my responsibility. We just got through celebrating, Nina Simone's, her birthday was yesterday, and one of her most famous quotes is, as an artist, we have a social responsibility. And as a Black artist, just like what, Shaka alluded to, we stand on a lot of strong shoulders, you know what I mean? So we have a responsibility to, take that baton and to make sure that every time we put pen to paper, every time we sit down at our laptops, you have a obligation to tell the story of what it means to be Black and how beautiful it is to be Black, and uplift Black women and Black girls, and make sure we paint the truest picture that we possibly can, of our sons. And so I care about my legacy. I care about when all this is over with, that when people look at my body of work, I didn't go out of my way to write a bunch of, kumbaya books. I wrote books that uplifted the image of Black children. And I used to say that I wrote just for Black children, but I write for all children who may or may not be able to see themselves. I think every child, deserves the right to go in any library, in any bookstore, to see themselves. But I think it's imperative that white children in this country go into a bookstore and see children of color be the princess, or be the smartest person in the book, or be the captain, or be the superhero. And as long as I'm writing, I swear to everybody that came before me and is trying to do their best right now, that I'm going to be as authentic as I possibly can. Again, saying I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, and on 18th and Vine, if you've ever been there, it's where all the jazz musicians used to play. And there's a Negro Leagues, baseball museum, and right behind the museum is a huge bust of Charlie Bird Parker. And every time I go home, I go out there, and it's like 11, 12 o'clock at night, and I sit and I have a conversation with that bus, and just to let him know that I have took the torch and I'm still running with it, and I'm representing, Kansas City to the fullest, but also, the culture, representing the culture to the fullest for as long as I can, until I'm old and gray, wrinkly. I'm gonna be as black as I possibly can, and just fill my books with love and with positive energy and with confidence, the same way I raise my sons.
Your book, Derrick, is a present to my 2-year-old grandson, Octavius.
All right,
Named for
Octavius.
Cato. And, he too. So he's fascinated with Daniel Tiger. He's fascinated with Grandma As You Are So Wonderful. He's fascinated with your beautiful book and the
Love it.
illustrations. And I think in the days of, quote, waking up white people, waking up Asians and Latinx folks who are looking for books for their children, I just want to make sure I say this book is beautiful for all the
Thank you.
children. And it's great to see words like I'm an open eye, one eye closed, peeking through a microscope, gazing through a telescope for all the children, but that the hero of that page is a Black boy looking in the microscope. It gives me chills.
Thank you.
Beautiful
And shout out to
stuff.
Gordon James. Gordon James is the illustrator of that book. He's also the illustrator of Crown.
Crown, yeah.
Just a brilliant illustrator. And he and I have been friends for a long time. Shout out to Gordon if he's watching.
I'm coming for you, Gordon, for my next book. I'm coming for the children's book. I'm coming. Can you answer that question too, Michael, about the kind of core message you want to give to fathers who are fathering, that you want them to take away from your book?
Yeah. First of all, this conversation is absolutely fabulous. It's one of the dopest conversations I've had in a minute. You do a lot of interviews when you do a book and all that good stuff, and this one has really been really cool. I could listen to Shaka talk all day. It was really inspiring. I wrote that book, man, because I wanted fathers to understand the importance of transforming their pain rather than transmitting their pain. And to be vulnerable in this moment, really, honestly, I grappled with for a long time, never sharing my story because of the nature of my story and the nature of my record getting sealed. No one ever had to know. But then that would have made me a generational thief. And I would have betrayed all of the individuals who sacrificed, bled, died for us to be able to share the significance and power of who we are, even in the midst of our struggles. And so what I was really after was this culture of indifference when we experience and acknowledge trauma and pain, but then also to transform that narrative, right? So that the next generation has no relationship to the pain that we endured, right? And so it was what I was after with my own son as a father, to make sure he inherited my wisdom, not my wounds. And as a society, it seems as though we are bent on passing down our troubles more than we are of allowing our children to inherit the truth, because our kids can only be as rich as the truth we teach them.
Amen.
So that's what I was really after in writing this book. And I couldn't sit idly by with my life looking all shiny now and not share this story. And to be vulnerable and honest enough to say, yeah, I was once there. And I didn't want my son to look at me on the other side of things and really not know all of what I went through, because at some point, at some time, he might be facing that. He might face it as a father himself and his own son. And I wanted him to have a roadmap that if he ever found himself in the wrong lane, he could make the right turn.
Oh gosh, that is so beautiful. Especially Michael, as clergy, there's a lot of emphasis on our perfection, and I'm putting that in quotes, or our goodness, so people can look at us and sort of see God, if you will. but that authentic truth-telling self. Honestly, I believe
Yeah,
people
well,
yearn for that, right?
you know, well, theologically speaking, that doesn't even align with scripture. Everybody God used was jacked up. I mean,
I know. Right.
this is what
David?
it is.
Yeah,
We all jacked
everybody.
because
Yeah,
it's about a human experience,
yes,
right?
that's
It's
right.
about a human experience, man. And
That's
I
right.
think that's why you know, these narratives, these powerful books,
Mhm.
are resonating so much the way that they are. Yeah.
You know, friends, my book Fierce Love is about my journey to really finding that fierce love would be, I think, the only thing that would save me and save our people and save the world. And in the book, I'm honest about my dad, who I adore. Hey, Daddy, if you're listening, 87 years old, Black, Mississippi, could kick you behind, no issues with that, but also crying and tender and helping you learn how to write. I mean, just the complicated dadness of the world. I tell my like bumpy daddy stories in this book, and he reads the book cover to cover and calls me crying. I'm so proud that you were honest. Don't you all think that people want the truth? Just the truth of our experience, the truth of our beauty, the truth of our magic, the truth of our vulnerability, the truth of our mistakes. Our children need the truth, right? So they can navigate this world that is hard, but also beautiful. Um, so you have children. That's why you're dads. And I wonder if there's a little anecdote, a story you want to tell about something. I got Seku's babies in my brain, you know, Seku. I've got Seku and Jay in my brain from Shaka, Seku and Jay. Do your children have a lesson they gave you that you would just tell us like, and this really fathered me along, to quote my friend Elliot Daly, but this fathered me along because this little person taught me this. Is there something like that that you would share with us?
Um, you know, for me, um, having four sons
Mhm.
and you know being raised in a single parent household and not seeing that interaction with you know a man with my mother on a daily basis, all this was new. All this was new to me,
Mhm.
you know, and I had never, I mean, you just don't know what that kind of love feels like until it happens to you. With all four of our boys, I had music. I had music playing in the delivery room. I went nuts every time they entered the world. You know, I remember we had there's a song called Zion by um, you know, Lauryn Hill. I had that
Lauryn
playing,
Hill.
but yeah,
Yeah.
when my eldest son was playing, I was like, I see you, boy. I see you. Come on. It was crazy. But you know, one thing, the thing I've learned the most is that they are four young men, ages 21, 17, 15, and 10, four totally different personalities, four totally different energies. You know, I think a lot of times we don't realize as we're raising our children, they are also raising us. I mean, we're also growing up with them, you know. And so I've I've had to learn how to you know, encourage and motivate and, you know, discipline four human beings four totally different ways. You know, what works for one may not work for the other.
Mhm.
And it is a never ending job. You know, our eldest boy, he left here. He's a junior at North Carolina A&T. And when he left here, I mean, he started school and, you know, majoring in mechanical engineering. Well, you know, COVID has done a number on all of us, you know, emotionally, you know, socially. He had to do a whole semester here. He had to do a whole semester, you know, virtually. And he came to the conclusion that he didn't want to do engineering anymore.
Mm.
And he almost never wanted to do engineering. He thought that we wanted him, you know, to be an engineer. And he said he always wanted to be a team doctor for a basketball team or for a football team. And he thought we were going to be extremely disappointed in him. I mean, he's one of those kids that can just stumble into a classroom and make an A. And so we had this long conversation with him about how you kind of realize at this point, and I'm sure you both can attest to this, when your children get to a certain age, when they were younger, you had all these aspirations about what they were going to become. But when they get to a certain age, I feel like, obviously they should have their own aspirations, but I think I would just be satisfied if they are just good men, if they are good husbands, if they are good fathers, in regards to, what kind of careers they go into. That I can't control that. There's a lot you can't control once they get into junior high school. Everything changes. But I'm going to be available to, give all these brothers support. I'll drive those 2 and 3 hours in order to get to Greensboro. If that brother needs me there, we're about to send our second eldest son solo. He's going to Fayetteville State, and all you can do is be available for them. And listen to Shaka talk about his father, and Michael talk about his father, and all you can hope for is that your sons look at you the same way. I hope that when my boys become men, they say the same kind of things, that these two gentlemen have said about their fathers, because I sure am trying, you know what I mean? And that's all you can do. I've been trying for 21 years now, giving my all to these young men, you know what I mean? So, man, it's been extremely fun, and we got so many more years left. We're gonna have an empty house, but we got this 10-year-old, so we got a few more years left, but
Just
time
messed
is
that up,
going
didn't
fast, boy. That boy be up and out of here before you know it. So, but again, I'm gonna always be here for them.
Thank you, Derrick. Michael, what about you? Something that your little ones taught you, or your children teach you about fathering?
My kids were my greatest teachers. They still kind of are. It really, I could tell you stories about my son or my daughter. I'll pick the one with my daughter. She was a gymnast. She was in gymnastics. Obviously, she came out. She was rolling around with her. And for years, I had 5 days a week, 4 hours a day, taking her gymnastics and all that stuff. And she had gotten pretty high. She came in third in the state at this event. And I was so proud. I was so happy. She was like, 8 years old, 10 years old, something like that. And she gets off the podium, and I'm just there cheesing and grinning and smiling, taking pictures, doing what dads do. And she's sad. And she comes off, and I said, "Baby, what's wrong? What happened?" And she says, "Daddy, I don't want to do this anymore." And at first, I'm like, no, because I'm thinking about all the time and effort I put into her getting to where she was. And so I stopped myself from getting upset in that moment, because I really wanted to know why she didn't want to do it anymore. And I said, "Oh, baby, why don't you want to do this anymore?" And she said, "Because this is not who I am." Ooh. Now she's like 10.
This is not who I am.
This is not who I am. She said, "Daddy, I'm good at it, but it's not who I am." And I said, "Okay, let's go get some ice cream so we can find out who you are, what your passion is." She did it faithfully because she thought it was pleasing to me. I did it faithfully because I thought that's what she wanted. The lesson is that I had to learn to parent my children for the future they were going to have, not for the past that I already lived.
All right now.
My past experiences as a person, being dedicated, all that stuff, and putting your best foot forward, yada yada yada, trying to project that onto them, taught me to take a step back and say, okay, they're going to live in a world that you didn't live in. And your job is to instill all the love, virtue, and value that you can into their life so that they can navigate their future. Because guess what? You haven't lived there, and you won't live there.
That's right. All right. Right.
And so it's been an amazing journey as a parent to see my kids become adults and come into their own and all that great stuff. And they're still teaching me today. They're
Wonderful.
still teaching me. Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Shaka, I feel like I've had some insight into lessons maybe from Jay and Sekou, but what can you tell us something that you learned from your kids as you fathered them?
Yeah, first of all, this conversation is just beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to hear other fathers expound on their experiences in such a meaningful and deeply thoughtful way. And this is what I hope for right in this moment, is that at some point that us three can be on tour somewhere having this conversation, because I think this is the type of conversation that the world has been waiting for. And I definitely see a world where we should collaborate on some type of written project to really speak to these conversations in a way that's really accessible. You know, as I think about my two sons, I have two dramatically different experiences. One, you know, my oldest son, Jay, was born 6 months after I was arrested. And so for 19 years, our relationship consisted of letters written from prison, conversations on the phone call with those interruptions by an automated voice telling us we only have 1 minute to go before the phone hangs up, and the visits that my dad and my stepmom, you know, would bring, you know, when they would bring my son to see me. What I've learned when I got home from prison was that first I came home as a mentor and not a father, because I thought my responsibility was to ensure that he didn't travel the path that I took, that he avoided, you know, all the hurtful and painful, traumatic events of my life. And I had just never considered that he was charting a path of his own and that he had dreams of his own. And as our relationship evolved over time, what I found is that love often exists in the moments of silence. Oftentimes when me and my oldest son, Jay, is on the phone, there's just these moments where neither one of us are saying anything, and we're just present. And that's enough. You know, it's something that, you know, it wasn't necessary to contrive or what a relationship looks like or what love looks like. It's just being present as a dad, and allowing him to be present as who he truly is, who he's grown to be, despite my absence in his life during the time of my father having to really step in and you know, fill that gap. And what I've really learned from Sekou, and I learned this more, especially during tough times, you know, is that joy is essential to thriving. Sekou is one of the most joyful human beings I know, not alone, let alone a kid. And it's a deeply spiritual joyfulness. You know, it's a very intentional, thought out understanding of what it means to really show up in the fullness of whatever is possible. You know, he's musically creative. He's, you know, he's just such a thoughtful, charismatic, welcoming, you know, human being. And so there's moments where, you know, I'm busy, life is hectic, you know, things are going wrong, things are going right. And he always reminds me to embrace joy and affection and love, because he comes up, gives me a hug. You know, he always has something a little slick to say. You know, it's kind of funny because he, like, you know, as Derrick was mentioning, you know, he's 10 now, and those days are going fast. There's just these moments of watching him, you know, really grow into a big boy, you know, and I'm intentional about, you know, he's not growing into a little man yet. He's growing into a big boy though, you know, it's very different. But it's so much joy, you know, so the lessons is just joy is essential to thriving, and love can exist in silence, you know, and we don't have to force anything to be other than what it is in a moment.
Are y'all taking notes for the big tour? And can I come? Can I come with you all?
You got to moderate. You got to
Is that
moderate.
right? Can I come on? This is just poetry. It's just gorgeous. I mean, we don't yell at the child who doesn't want to be a gymnast. We take them to ice cream. I love that. I love that. I love the lessons that you all are putting on the table. And there's a couple of things in the chat that I just want to extrovert because they're going to come to you in a second, but like the world is all it is, right? There's Latinx folks, Asian folks, white folks, indigenous folks that are going to hear you because that's what happens in the world. Your books are not, they are about Black folks for Black folks, but also ubiquitous, right? What is the, let's say, what is fathering period? Could we do a lightning round? The most important fathering thing, period. As the girl to a Black father, I'll say, he was hard, but oh my God, every day I felt like he was saying to me, yes, you can. Y'all Black men, my father taught me how to line his hair on his head. The first time I lined his hair, okay, the line was up in here somewhere, up in the ear, okay? But he had me do it again. I couldn't drive across a bridge. He made me drive across that bridge across the Mississippi River on 55. Maybe I'm older than y'all, and it was like a 2-lane bridge. Yes, you can. That's what I got. Is there something that you all think is, yeah, right, Maya, I've really messed this here up. What's the ubiquitous thing that maybe Black fathering just has for the world? Could I do a lightning round? Just think about it, maybe 3 words or 4 words. What does fathering have for the whole world from you as Black fathers?
I would dive in. When I was writing this book, I realized the most important gift that I could ever give my son is full access to all of his emotions. I think that's a universal thing that dads, need to embrace, is that we have to stop shutting down the emotions, especially of our boys. And we have to stop terrorizing our girls with our fears of their, innocence being sullied because they get romantically linked to a boy. And so I think, disrupting fear-based, parenting and embracing egoless parenting and recognize like the sheer power that you open up to children when we as men stand in the fullness of all of our emotional experiences is the greatest gift we can ever give our children.
Yeah, I'll give 3 words. I'll give 3 words. Dad is destiny.
Dad is
destiny.
Oh, yes.
And the reason I say that is because just like to Shaka's point, right? Part of being the father is to shape identity of who your child is becoming, who they are and who they are becoming. And that is it takes time, it takes effort. It takes you being vulnerable as a human being to show what that looks like, because it's hard to become what you never see. But it's very easy to become what you're always exposed to. And so if your father, for me, as the way I viewed fathering and fatherhood, is really about your identity. And I use the word destiny to link it to identity because I believe they're one and the same thing. That being said, that helps the child with their history. Okay, their mistakes, their failures, their ups, their downs, all of the things they're going to go through life, to know that it's okay. It's okay. And so that they will never tie their identity to something that they did or something that happened to them. That they will always keep their identity rooted in who they are. Because that's what happened to me. I tied my identity. My father died. I tied my identity to being an athlete. Then when I lost that, I tied my identity to being a drug dealer. Then when I got locked up, I didn't know who the heck I was. All right. So it's that is destiny. It's not what you did. It's not who you are. You're so much more than what you did. And I'm going to give you a roadmap. I'm going to give you a blueprint. I'm going to give you a model of what that looks like.
I'm going to give you love.
That's right. That's right.
Beautiful.
That's right.
Beautiful.
That's right.
Thank you, Shaka. Thank you, Michael. What would you say there?
Well,
Derrick?
I agree wholeheartedly, with everything that, both Michael and Shaka said, but, also on the flip side of that, with, having a house full of testosterone, It's imperative. When they were younger, your children think you're the strongest man, on the planet. And I think they think that from a physical standpoint, but as they get older, they start to really understand where your strength comes from. It may come from faith. It may come from the experiences that you've, overcome. But I think the most important thing that I could give my sons is confidence and work ethic, and know that, the world doesn't have time for, excuses. You're going to have to wear a lot of hats. You're going to have to come through for a lot of people, and, your children watch what you do. And I hope that my sons see me wearing these multiple hats, trying to stay as spiritually and physically as healthy as I possibly can, so that I can be available, you know what I mean, and do everything that I possibly can, because one day, if they are blessed enough, they are lucky enough, they will have their own families. They will be lucky enough to have some woman fall in love with them and bear their big-headed children. And if that's the case, then you have a huge responsibility. There are going to be people that are looking to you for safety, looking to you for kindness, looking to you for wisdom. And, also on the flip side of that, we have to make sure we take care of ourselves, whether that comes from counseling, whether that comes from meditation, but you have to get yourself right, because there are people that need you. Like, I understand my place in this family. I understand and I accept, the responsibility of, being the rock. And I know that one day I'll be able to go over to their homes and see them taking up the mantle and, being the rock as well. It's just a huge responsibility that I thank God every day for, that I have the possibility that somebody cared enough for me, little Derrick Barnes from 54th and College, to travel to Mississippi and go to school and meet this girl from Compton, California. I met a girl from Compton in Mississippi, and to bring these 4 young men in the world. I don't ever take, that responsibility for granted. And I'm just so grateful for it every single day.
That's a great response. And I think Sister Jacqui, we lost her. But there's a great question in the question box that I think would be really appropriate for the conversation as we wrap up. And what is your greatest fear or joy as a father?
Wow.
Well, first of all, I want to say how cold Shaka is. Shaka just take the mantle and keep on running with it, brother. You got experience. You got experience with these Zooms, and I think both of you gentlemen do a lot more, speaking engagements than I do. I'm very much the hermit, in regards to writing. That's probably the part that I'm the most nervous about, getting out here and speaking. But we have too much experience, we have too much love, we have too much life in us to, keep it to ourselves. So I want to learn as much as I can from you two brothers in regards to speaking. And I've done, I've been a big fan of both of you guys. I hate to veer us off of track, but I just wanted to make sure I said that, man. And
we're gonna work it all out on this tour,
flowers, man, no doubt.
Right on this tour.
We're gonna work this out on this thing.
We're gonna work it out.
We're gonna
work it out. Penguin gonna work it out. We're gonna work this out. Guys, I had like a teeny tiny technical glitch. I was so glad to come back and find you still here. Yeah. Let me just ask you. Yeah.
Shaka posed a question while you was gone. He asked that somebody put in the chat, what was the greatest fear or joy of being
Thank
father?
you, Shaka. Okay. My internet went to hell for a minute. I'm like, what is happening?
Oh, good. Teamwork make the dream work.
Yeah, amen.
That's
We got to
right.
do it. Can I just then, as we close, say, could you give us a blessing, a benediction, an affirmation, a closing, some piece of joy, wisdom? I mean, we're in so many Zoom rooms. I'm always like, oh, let's give each other a blessing. Could you, each of us, just give us a few words as as an affirmation to those who are parenting? So we can head on out. We're so proud of you. We're so delighted to have you. Can I ask you to go first, Shaka?
Yeah, my words of wisdom would be, enjoy the fullness of this journey called parenthood. It's such a beautiful journey. It's such a complex journey. Just embrace the fullness of it and recognize when you are at your best as a parent, you truly are parenting the child in yourself.
Thank you, Shaka. Did you all answer that last question before people are like, did they answer the last question? Did you?
We
No.
did. We didn't get to do it.
Please finish that. Do that first. Okay. Shaka, did you answer it?
No, I didn't. The thing that brings me the most joy is just the full possibilities that, I'm really excited to see Sekou birth into the world. And that's pretty it. It's super simple. I just want to see all the amazement he's going to bring into the world.
All right. Thank you for that. Can you go real quick, Derrick? What's the answer to your question about the joy?
My greatest joy is because it's not going to be perfect. You know what I mean? For everyone who has younger children, this is not a linear path that they're going to take. They're going to be great students. They're going to have all great friends, and they're going to go to college and make all A's and, go on all these degrees. There's going to be some shortcuts. There's going to be some alternate routes that children are going to take, and you have to continue to grow with them and give yourself some grace, and don't beat yourself up about trying to be the most perfect parent that you possibly can, because it's just not possible. You have to shift and change with every phase and every mode that they go through. Just be present with them, and again, give yourself as much grace as you possibly can going through this journey called parenting.
Thank you so much, Derrick. And how about you, Michael?
My greatest joy of parenting is seeing my children become just amazing human beings. Not human doings, but human beings. Who they are in the world, how they treat people. They're just good people. And it's a joy to see that I had a hand in putting two good people in the earth. I don't have any fear because I will say this. When my son was first born, I was afraid that I would not really be able to do all the things necessary for his life, but that's a fallacy. And so I'll leave you with these encouraging words. The opinion that you have right now can only be based on your experience. You have yet to have an experience that shapes and changes your opinion about what the outcome is going to be. You don't have to worry about that outcome. You just have to worry about this moment. And if you would simply be in this moment, the outcome will take care of itself.
Beautifulness. All right, y'all. Penguin Random House. Isn't this amazing? Woo! Let's, whoever's back there in the world of I can pop things in the chat, just put Derrick and Michael and Shaka's one more time in the chat, because chats go by fast. And if I could then, well, thank you, Althea. If I can say what a joy it's been to be in this Penguin Random House family and to bump into all the bad asses, excuse my language, that are Penguin Random House authors. Wow. And this is no exception. And I'm honored to meet you. If you go on the tour without me, bad things are going to happen. No, I want to come. And I'm so grateful to you, all of you, for being just beautiful humans on the planet, and also being beautiful Black men on the planet, and then being beautiful Black dads on the planet. The planet is richer for your experiences, for your stories, for the uniqueness of you. And all y'all, as a psychologist type, pastor type person, your children are better because you're here.
Yeah.
That's it. Just be, laugh with them, cry with them, make mistakes with them, tickle them, take them to ice cream when they don't know what they want to do. Just love them, love them, love them. God put you in the way on God's behalf to hold on to those little humans. You can do it. You can. And we love you. Blessings, blessings, blessings.
Thank you so much.
Peace out.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
y'all.
you, guys.
Peace out, y'all.
Peace, everybody.
All right, peace, y'all. Looking
Absolutely.
forward to seeing y'all on tour.
Let's
Let's
do
do
it.
it. Let's do it, man.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Get the
Going
tour
out
bus.
We're
Shaka,
gonna see it.
Michael, Derrick, killing it. Thanks, y'all.
Let's do it.
All right,
God
Bye,
bless.
Peace, y'all.
everybody.
bye.
Bye-bye.